Alrighty, so I'm back with yet another Pauper deck tech. So again, I've been looking at lots of pre-modern deck lists online and just playing around with porting some of those archetypes into Pauper to varying degrees of success. So the latest is essentially a Pauper version of the pre-modern mono black aggro suicide lists. So after much messing around and trying out different versions, I've landed on this version, which seems pretty decent. It needs more tinkering, I guess, and the sideboard is very underdeveloped. At the moment, I'm just running tons of graveyard hate because, there's so many graveyard decks dominating the format currently. But that said, the deck is a lot of fun. It's quite flavorful, kind of nostalgic, and I think it has some potential. It's kind of similar to the mono black burn decks, but just more creature based. So yeah, I'll just quickly run through it. So in terms of our 1-drops, we have 4 copies of Vampire Lacerator, 1 black for a 2/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life unless an opponent has 10 life or less. So this is kind of fulfilling the role that Carnophage plays in the pre-modern lists, just a 1-drop with a strong body, and kind of the same applies to Akiba Reckoner Raid. 1 black for a Saga. The first and second triggers make your opponent lose 1 life and you gain 1 life, and then the third it exiles and returns as a 2/2 with Menace. So a little slow, but essentially another copy of a 2 power, 2 toughness 1-drop. So if we get these in the first and second turn, that's pretty good. Late game, it's much weaker, obviously. Then, in terms of our 2-drops, we are running 8 copies of the classic Shadow aggro creatures. Doughty Horror, 2 for a 2/1 Shadow. And then Doughty Slayer, 2 for a 2/2 with Shadow. So Shadow says these creatures can block or be blocked only by other creatures with Shadow. So they're essentially unblockable. It's just repeatable, unstoppable damage just to chip away at the opponent's life. Then finally, we have Ruthless Cullblade, 2 for a 2/1, and it gets +2/+1 as long as an opponent has 10 life or less. So with this deck, it's so aggro, it's dealing so much damage so quickly that it's actually relatively easy to get our opponent down to 10 or below quite quickly. So this tends to be 2 for a 4/2, which is quite an aggro little body. Another creature which is very similar is Guldra's Vampire, 1 black for a 1/1. It says as long as an opponent has 10 or less life, it gets +2/+1 and has Intimidate. So this is also another potential solid 1-drop. At the moment, I prefer the Akiba Reckoner Raid to this, but that may change. Then rounding out the rest of the list, we have 4 copies of Dark Ritual, just to ramp us and try get some aggressive starts. Again, it's kind of there also for the nostalgia factor. It kind of really makes this feel like an old school list. Okay, the same goes for Duress, although this could be Defile or something. It just, it depends on the meta, really. Then for further damage, we have Tyrant's Choice, which is also from the mono black burn decks. 2 mana for a sorcery. It says starting with you, each player votes for death or torture. If death gets more votes, each opponent sacrifices a creature. If torture gets more votes or the vote is tied, each opponent loses 4 life. So you can basically always force your opponent to lose the 4 life, with this card. So it's essentially just 4 damage to the face. And then finally, we have Bone Splitter, of course. Just to slap these on a shadow creature means we can start chipping in with quite a lot of damage. So yeah, there's the deck in its current form. I have been enjoying it a lot. So if you have ideas for it, please let me know in the comments. Or if you've played with mono black aggro decks in Pauper, let me know which cards are working for you. And also what cards in Modern Horizons 3 might work in this deck. One that I've been thinking of is Refurbished Familiar. I'll be testing that out in my Rackless Rack discard deck as well. But I'll end it there. So as usual, thanks very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.